Hey, how you going? My name is Lachlan Watt, and music is my life. Feels pretty bloody good to finally have this podcast up and running. Thank you so much if you checked out the first one last week, or if you're checking it out for the first time now. I really, really appreciate it. It'd mean a hell of a lot to me if you could help me build this platform from the ground up by liking, subscribing, following, sharing, commenting, telling your friends, whatever you can do to help me spread the word if you are enjoying what I am doing here. This week's episode is a conversation I had with Jacob Duzsik, the singer-guitarist of LA three-piece industrial or cum metal trio Health. I've become pretty good friends with Jake and Health over the last few years, having brought them to Australia in 2023 for Dark Mofo. We followed it up in 2024 with a fully sold-out headline tour, and just a couple of months back, they were here again for Knotfest, and that's where this conversation took place the night before the Brisbane show. We covered quite a bit of ground in this chat. What do we talk about? We talked about the creative process, the new record that's coming. We talked about being the odd band out. We talked about their evolution from a hipster noise rock band to being cum metal pioneers, as it were. We also talk about collaborating with Lamb of God. We talk about the time that Duzsik stole their seats at a Lamb of God show. We also talk about sobriety, which is a journey that's relatively new for me, but one that Jake has been on for quite some time. And then we cover some stranger topics as well, such as Jeffrey Epstein, QAnon, quantum mechanics, and a whole bunch more. It's an interesting chat. Hope you enjoy it. If you want some more health content, next week's episode is with Johnny, the band's bass player and meme master. Anyway, my name's Lachlan Watt. Music is my life, and this is my conversation with Jake from Health. Cheers.
No, I think that's smart. I mean, you were a radio presenter. You know how to
Yeah, but it's funny though because radio, I could do stuff on tour and travel and do interviews and things, but all I really needed to do was whip out my phone and I could just record audio that was going to be good enough. But then having all this extra stuff to worry about just is stressful. I'm not used to it yet.
Yeah, but you'll get it dialed.
Yeah, hopefully. And with the portable setup, it's funny because I had this thought I had this big idea being like every video podcast is kind of boring. It's always in the same studio.
Yeah.
Or like just on Zoom or whatever. But like, wouldn't it be cool if I could have a mobile setup and just film in all these exotic locations? And then 2 episodes in, it's just hotel rooms.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you're going to be dealing with bands that are on tour.
Yeah. So I don't think I've told you the name of it. It's Music is My Life.
Okay.
And so I guess that's kind of semi-sarcastic in a way. Like, it can kind of be like a really positive sort of, yay, music fucking rules and music is my life. Like,
yeah,
we
it's
are
usually
on tour again in a hotel.
It's
tired.
usually kind of both things.
So 3 times in Australia for Health in 3 years. I think under 3 years at this point.
Yeah, I think the last time we were here was 8 months ago?
August, yeah.
Yeah, and I was just mentioning to our drummer PJ that he doesn't even remember, but we stayed at this hotel when we played the Triffid the year before that when we came for Dark Mofo.
Yeah.
So I feel like we were on a little drought, and now we're just getting all the Australia back in as much as possible.
Yeah, because it was 8 years between visits before that last one?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we somehow just missed it on volume 4, our 4th record.
Yeah, I guess probably the pandemic has something to do with that as well.
I think so. It made for a weird record cycle because usually we would do, Europe, US full album support tours, and then do some B market stuff in festivals, and then you end up trying to get in Australia, South America, and it just kind of ran right into 2020 and everything stopped.
So festivals, you're here for Knotfest.
Indeed.
Pretty, I guess you'd say you're like the odd band out on the bill, huh?
We're always a fucking odd band. It's been very consistent. We just have traded what those bills are. It makes sense. We're not really a genre band. So at this stage, I've gotten pretty used to it.
I guess, yeah. Not many other cum metal bands out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's, John's made a funny meme out of that, but I think part of why the meme works is we don't have a genre. So
Yeah.
we're just like, oh, we had to make up a genre to sort of encapsulate our band. Um, he was kind of going off the joke of like baddie core, but we don't think that we actually have an aesthetic through line with like Sleep Token or Bad Omens. Even though we've collaborated with those bands and we appreciate that they like what we do, I don't think that the sound. I think that there are certain sounds like with modern metal and metalcore where people are very open minded to electronic. I mean, most electronic music isn't really aggressive unless it's like bro step. So I can see how there's a little bit of a thing, but I think part of the joke of the cum metal thing is we've just never had a genre. Now we would say we're a modern industrial band, but I don't know what that really means. You know?
Yeah, is there even any other modern industrial bands? Like, I can't really think of many industrial bands that are really in the zeitgeist,
Like
right now.
Three Teeth, I think for a while was a band that people, but they sound legitimately like an industrial band more than we do.
Youth Code, while they were active, perhaps.
Yeah. Youth Code, I think, is like us though, where they're kind of in a weird, because it's like industrial meets hardcore.
Yeah.
Which is what I love about it.
I guess Health is kind of a bit of a band's band.
Yeah, we've been just fucking running on the fumes of the goodwill of industry people for seriously though. I mean, it's been like I was just talking to our TM and he's like, "Oh, the singer from Hatebreed wants to wear your guy's shirt tomorrow." I'm like, "What the fuck?" I just like would not have anticipated that.
Yeah.
I think it's cool to be a band's band. Because there's nothing more validating than having the respective peers that you know actually really know what goes into making a band and like making a record and trying to have an identity. But at the same time, it would be nice to also be a fans band.
Yeah, well, you might be a band's band, but there was also still pretty much 2 full rows of people in the front of the stage yesterday wearing Health shirts. So
we've made a lot of headway in the last 5 years of really gaining a lot of fans. There was definitely certain points in the band where it's like we're kind of only getting not just bands, but like like video game music supervisors or like directors or something. The things that keep the band going because we can work in strange spaces. But you to make a proper living out of it and feel like you're maybe reaching. I would be not representing myself truthfully if I said I didn't care what people think about the music that we make. We want it to reach people. I want it to emotionally affect people. I want them to be able to connect to it the way I connected with music. Sometimes you hear people saying, "I don't give a fuck. This is just about me wanting to express myself." And I feel like on some level that's almost always disingenuous if you're releasing the music. If it's just about personal expression, like you wouldn't put it out.
If you were just doing music to listen to yourself.
Yeah, and just like, oh, I just need to have a catharsis. So it's like, okay, why are you releasing it? So
yeah, I guess I think everyone that plays music on some level wants the spotlight or the attention.
I mean, obviously there are exceptions to this, like someone like Burial who could have had a giant career playing shows and just doesn't want to play shows. Didn't maximize it in any profit way. But that's not my chief concern.
Yeah.
I want the fans because I want to feel like we're communicating something to people emotionally.
I think you might have said this someone in the band said this in an interview in the last year or two, that like you feel like the state of the world and the whole aesthetic of rat wars and the dystopic sort of stuff is kind of really resonating with people lately just because of how the world is, and that it is kind of the sad techno future.
Yeah, it's definitely something that came up a lot just doing in press for the last record. I think it was a German guy who asked me the exact same question, and then he went on to ask if I wanted things to keep getting worse so that the band
you could write better music,
maybe grow. And I was like, No, dude. I don't want the world to spiral to shit on the off chance that it's beneficial for my band.
Yeah, I guess, I wouldn't say that LA burning down where you're from is probably not really been great for your career.
I mean, it's a strange thing to try to communicate to people that aren't from there. Because like any major city or any city that you live in, there's just a lot of minutia and detail that you only learn from spending a lot of time there. So on its surface, if you didn't live near those neighborhoods, you wouldn't really know that. And I know multiple people who lost their homes, but it's not the kind of thing where you see some blank spot in the skyline from downtown or anywhere really in central Los Angeles. I definitely thought about the fact that like we're finishing up a single for next music we're going to release, and just because of the generally depressing nature of the lyrics that I write, I realized that it's almost certainly going to be. I mean, people have goldfish brains now, so if it doesn't come out for like 2 more months, then
they'll pin it to the next disaster.
But if it came out now, they'd be like, "Oh, this is about the fires." But we wrote it before the fires, so. Yeah, it's definitely been a weird time in the city just because it's anybody I know who work, like a lot of people had to cancel shows because people weren't going to fucking shows. And then like people weren't going to restaurants, people weren't, but now it's kind of because the air was poison. It's very different. I know you guys get a lot of wildfires, but it's really different when like 15,000 structures burn and like all the fucking Tesla batteries and all the asbestos and pipes and all that shit burns. That's very toxic.
Yeah, I was talking to BJ about it the other day when you guys first got into town, and he was talking about this realization that he had with breathing in the smoke, that, he was breathing in potentially the ashes of dead people, if not, their pets and like everything they ever owned. And that was grim.
Yeah, I have a little kid, so it's been interesting for me because I almost had like a reverse COVID reaction of being an anti-masker because I would see these like hipster fucks like waiting at the Zeitgeist brunch spot in this crazy respirator mask like for their oat milk latte because there was so much stuff going on social media about how the air was going to be poisoned for 2 years, which is probably true. But I was just like, you fucking guys are only going to do this for like another week until it's not in your feed anymore. And then it's because people are kind of talking about it. You're either going to leave or you're not. If you're not going to leave, then shut the fuck up. 'Cause I take my kid to school, and sometimes I see a parent with one of those masks on and their kid doesn't have a mask on, and I'm like, dude, fuck you, you're a piece of shit. Like, you just let your kid breathe this shit in. Like you gotta like
probably more about presenting an image than the actual practicality.
Well,
of
to
it,
me,
though,
I'm
right?
just saying if you're I get it, it's hard to get a little kid to wear a mask if they don't want to, but if my kid isn't going to wear a mask, like I got to have some solidarity and not wear a mask with him. Like, I want to be, I'm not going to, if I'm going to put him in a position where he was in a city where I think that you can't breathe the air, like I'm not going to wear a mask and he can't. So I just kind of came to my partner was looking into it a lot, and there's a lot of scary stuff, but man, almost everything is scary.
Yeah,
when you
like do you want to wrap your child in just like cotton wool forever? Because the whole like everything's dangerous, right? Like,
that's what I'm saying is like, and when you
fucked.
start researching shit, almost everything
There's
is
cancer and everything.
exactly. I mean, like his goddamn cerebral fluid's gonna have microplastics in it. Like I can't, look into everything.
Yeah,
So
I'm sure it probably already does.
oh yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I'm sure babies are probably born with microplastics in them now.
They definitely are.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, let's talk about the music then for a bit. So
the concept album about microplastic.
I think last time we spoke on the Racket, you sort of spoke about the next album as though it was kind of going to be like Rat Wars 2, but I think it has evolved beyond that point, but it is essentially within the same sonic universe as you describe it.
Yeah, it's not a double album, but it's the same aesthetic production universe. And thematically, they're supposed to be complementary to one another.
Mm.
But it's not like there's a narrative that continues with a character like a Genesis album, like a Peter Gabriel or a Genesis thing like that. It's not that rigorous, but it's definitely a continuation.
So it's just sort of like emotionally on the same level.
And the artwork will be, we want to present them together eventually in like a dual vinyl box set, and like they're there'll be motifs musically that are touched on again in the second one. So they're definitely not just exclusive of one another, but you could listen to them independently, of course.
So given that Health has been a band that generally each album has had quite a distinct identity, why have you settled on making a spiritual successor or sister album in this case?
I think the main thing for me has been there's some arbitrary cycles. They're not arbitrary because they're dictated by the demands of the industry. When it comes to creativity, though, I think it's really negative that you have album cycles and you have touring cycles, and it's very difficult, especially the way we write music in a modern sense. Zeppelin could write most of Zeppelin 2 while they're touring Zeppelin 1 because it's like Jimmy Page is just writing riffs, and at soundcheck they just fuck around. That's not how we write music. So it's really hard to write on the road. But I think that what happens, I think this would be, obviously you have to kill your darlings and let go of things to finish them creatively. But right when you're finishing an album is when you understand that album the most. You understand the most what you're trying to accomplish, how to piece the songs together, what you want it to sound like. The earlier stage is like a fumbling in the dark until you usually unlock one song that sort of tells you what the sound is, and then you kind of use that as a map. And as something as mundane as how you eat or going to the gym, you build a routine. And I think being creative falls into the same umbrella. And so when you then say, okay, I'm going to stop and now I'm going to go on tour randomly for 2 years and just be kind of cracked out when I'm home, and then we'll start thinking about writing, I just don't want to do that anymore. Especially, I can totally understand if you don't feel like you have anything else to say. The pandemic and becoming a father was like really at a really emotionally difficult time for me, and I'm just generally a pretty unhappy person. So I think that making music is a quite necessary, cathartic, therapeutic process. So it's not like I want to come off of an album cycle and then not write music because I'm having such a good time. It's like I'm not having a good time. So I mean, I'm having a lot of their enriching experiences, but I think the main reason was, we had in certain ways an overabundance of songs, and you have to make certain decisions about what you want to go on the record, how you think you can curate a track listing, which I know a lot of younger kids have no fucking idea what it is to listen to an album from start to finish, but we still really care about that. And so originally the idea was, okay, we'll do like an expanded EP. So like maybe a 6-song EP. And then it just felt like, why don't we just waterfall it into, because we did 2 collaborative records, we sort of got into this prolific mindset. And it's not about spamming people with content. It's just like, we're just writing a lot of music, and I'm proud of it and happy with how a lot of it's come out. And I think that I just didn't want to impose this exile from creativity where we now wait 3 or 4 years and you and I were discussing this the other day, I think the other thing that is negative about that is that you get really far away from your fans because you go on the tour and then you understand the most about how your fans are interacting with the music that you just released. And then you finish the touring and then you start digesting other things that inspire you, but you are then very distant from that conversation you're having with people about music. So I just wanted it to be fluid.
And do you think potentially with that in mind that is it a possibility that maybe Health has kind of found its definitive sound and might just exist in this area indefinitely? Or do you think that after this next record, it will be moving on to fresh territory?
It's kind of in our nature to always be evolving. There's positives and negatives of that, and in certain ways, I think it's allowed us to stay a band, because we don't have like a hit sound. You know what I mean? Because you look at certain bands, like a band like Interpol or something. It's just like they have a sound, it's fully realized. When it comes out, everyone fucking loves it, and then the rest of the career is like trying to stay engaged. But when you hove too far away from that, people are like, it doesn't sound like what I want you to sound like.
Yeah.
We both fortunately and unfortunately do not have that problem. No, nobody, like maybe we will now. I don't know. But, or like Metallica or it's something where it's just like, it's so beloved in this one aesthetic form that it's really hard to deviate from that. We have all the freedom in the world. So I think that it's just more exciting to try to do something new every record.
So yeah, I guess it'll be inevitable that you'll stumble across whatever
There's already going to be a bunch of shit on this new record that I thought was going to be much more of a spiritual musical companion to Rat Wars, but it actually is pretty different.
In what ways?
Inadvertently, I felt like Rat Wars was the most complete album we ever made in terms of everything just kind of fitting together. We didn't really try to write any singles. In fact, we didn't even really know what they were. We kind of just turned the record in, and then, people at the label were like, these ones are good. And so, and it's not from a lack of effort, but it was kind of the most natural, smooth record we ever made. And I think it very much plays like an album in the kind of classic sense. And what I didn't want to try to do was reproduce that the second time. So I think the answer to that on this one is there's more jammers. It's kind of more fun. Still very dark, obviously, but there's a lot more up-tempo tracks. There's more what I would say feel like singles. Like for me, like the centerpiece song on Rat Wars is Demigods, which is like a fucking prog rock song.
Yeah.
It's got like all these different sections and tempo changes and all these things. And I didn't want to go in making the second disc and try to write another song like that and have it be inferior to the first version. So it kind of just felt like, well, why don't we just explore some other things that are maybe more immediate or fun, especially like the way we toured the record quite heavily. So we're really seeing how the fans are reacting to things. Also, it's just really hard to write a song like that.
Yeah,
So,
I think you were saying like DSM-5 is like the one song on the album that isn't a single or wasn't a single and just like seems to really be the fan favorite.
I mean, that's been really instructive for us, man, because it's like we were pretty self-conscious about that song. That was
why? Because it was such a meathead sort of song.
Such a fucking meathead song. It's like this total Rammstein rip that is like and Rammstein is a Ministry rip. You know what I mean? So it's like, and I love Ministry, so we're kind of like listening to Rammstein and like Just One Fix and shit like that, and like kind of a little. It was sort of a way of a little nod to, hey, we actually made an industrial song. And it's kind of boneheaded, And we were like, it was like John's idea to do the song, and then we were working on it, and even he, because there's a little fire and ice thing that goes on between John and I of like, you know, he's definitely the more like, okay, let's have fun with the song. And even he at one point was like, is this just like too, because we're fucking, I was saying to you the other day, I'm just born to hate. I just hate on shit all day. Just super harsh.
And John's born to love.
And John's a fucking hater too, though, when it comes to, so something that's that on the nose, we were just like, and then it's fucking fish in a barrel, man. People love that shit. That's the thing. That's what we realized about it. And we were kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah, when the record finally came out and I'd already spent so much time with the singles, and then I get to the last track and I was like, that was sick. Like, hit repeat. And I remember hitting repeat on it several times.
Yeah, I mean, so we just noticed that live, that just went the fuck off. And I mean, Children of Sorrow was cut. It wasn't even on the record. The one that has Willie from Lamb of God playing on it. Because it's like I was kind of trying to do a sort of Sabbath-y kind of song. The changes, the regular changes that aren't him like ripping in the beginning, I played as just like, okay, like something within the first 5 Sabbath records,
And then how did it make it back on?
When we were doing the sequencing, we had this really dark kind of factory records-y post-punk track there that's very cool and ethereal. And when I was listening to it, I was just like, if we take this off there and put that there instead, like the record is way more fun. And then we put that out first, and we just expected people to, we come from a different scene. We came out of, we were a noise rock band that was part of like an indie rock scene where people are, I've said this as a way to illustrate the difference. When you go to a heavy music show, when you see the fans or when you're in the audience, they're genuinely fans of the bands. They're so happy to be there.
And we make it our entire identities.
Yeah. When you are a hipster fucko at a show, what you're thinking is, I should start a band. That's what you think, and not like, because you're just like, this isn't that good, I should start a band. So coming out of that ilk, it's really easy to get in your own head about a song like DSM-5, where you're like, okay, this is like a lughead song that is like this nod to other bands.
You know what I really love about being in a health audience, though, that really, really struck me on the last tour? It's like there's metalheads of all sorts, like people in Slipknot shirts, people in like brutal underground death metal shirts, and there's like the guys that have obviously come from the gaming side, all the nerds, and then all like the anime cosplay people, and like just all like the hot goths, and it's just everyone's from all over the place.
It's a very interesting ecosystem that we've been drawing from that's like really kind of inspiring. No, I'm good. And I hope we can keep building on that, because that's a thing that strikes me. John always says it. He's like, we have the best fans. We have pretty awesome fans. Because when if I go to like, if we have friends playing a show and they're in a much bigger band, when you're going to the show and if there's 5,000 people at the show or something, you obviously notice that you just get way more normies at the show, because that's how you reach that many people. So you have to kind of reach squares, as it were.
From outside the underground.
Yeah. Casual music listeners. But that's also what's like, we're here for Knotfest. That's what's fucking rad. Like, I did a podcast the other day at the festival, and we were talking about Slipknot, and the interviewer was like, well, what do you remember about the first time you heard Slipknot? And it's like, what I remember more was how they were becoming a cultural phenomenon, and the music was so aggressive. And now they're a legacy gigantic band. So, you can draw people in, but you have to be in that lucky right moment, I think.
Yeah. I distinctly remember the first time I ever heard Slipknot. I was on a Cub Scout camp, because I used to be in the Scouts when I was a kid. And
nice.
The cool skater kid that I hadn't really spoken to before in Cubs, he had it on his, like, the self-titled album on his Discman, and gave me his headphones to have a listen. And I remember just going through the booklet, just kind of being actually scared.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like songs like Spit It Out and Wait and Bleed with like the singy parts and the rappy parts, I was like, yeah, this is cool. Then it would, go into one of the more heavy songs, and I was genuinely kind of scared. Like, how the fuck can you listen to this? Like, this is insane. And just didn't think it was for me. And then fast forward, all those years later, and I'm getting stupid Slipknot tattoos while I'm blackout drunk.
Yeah. I mean, there's something really, when you're into aggressive, cathartic music, I think every one of us has that memory of being a kid where you hear music where you're like kind of scared, and it's like so intoxicating. Like for me, it was like the first time I ever heard Black Flag. I was like the Wasted Again EP. Just like, I'm a big fan of Keith Morris era Black Flag, and I was just like, holy shit! Like this music just sounds like getting in trouble and like rebellion,
Yeah.
And I was just like so hooked on that instantaneously, because just like fucking music that your parents don't want you to listen to, that you can feel is transgressive. And there's something that, if you connect to that, this is what I love about heavy music, man, is it's just not casual. That was the thing, that the music scene that we came out of, you become a lifer. You stay. It doesn't matter if it's in the zeitgeist or. We live in LA. I'm sure it's the same in Melbourne, but like
Hipster capitals.
Yeah. People have to keep reinventing themselves, because staying in the zeitgeist, by its very nature is changing. Right now, heavy music is having this moment in that spotlight. Hot 20-year-old chicks are TikToking themselves to Deftones all day. But there are Deftones fans that have been there for 20 plus years, and they're always going to be there because they don't give a fuck whether or not it's in vogue to like it. And, I've been living in LA for my entire adult life, and it's like, I've just known so many dudes who were like, we're in a free noise band, fucking picnic table, contact mic, circuit bent, whatever thing. And then they became a house DJ. And then they started doing modular synth techno and, selling ketamine. And then they now are like virtue signal posting shit all day and are really into whatever thing that like allows them to maybe get laid still or stay viable in that ecosystem. And that's what's so refreshing. Honestly, that's why we got out of that shit, because we were like, we could see the people that were at our shows, and we knew what we were like when we were kids. And so we're like, we want to communicate to people who actually care. Not that hipsters don't care about music. It's just
care in a different way. Perhaps.
Yeah. And it's just like, you define yourself as this music-based subculture, but it's ever changing, and there's not the same level of emotional loyalty. And I think that part of that is what you were just articulating, and we were sort of resonating with, is that feeling of hearing something and being kind of scared, and it being like, oh, this is going to be my whole thing.
Yeah. I don't know if it was immediately my whole thing. I think I was like originally more of a punk rock kind of kid.
And aren't all of us kind of?
And then like punk and ska was my gateway, I suppose. And then the metal came a bit later, but took over pretty quickly.
Yeah, for me, it's always been more of I was definitely way more into industrial music when I was younger. Like in terms of music that was really, like I got into punk rock. Punk rock is like still like my true like love, like old school 80s hardcore era punk, Dead Kennedys, Black Flag, Minor Threat, all that shit. But then like getting into Ministry and Skinny Puppy and KMFDM and all that shit, that was like. And then I went through this total snob phase where I was just listening to like fucking John Coltrane and like Sun Ra and Crass albums and hated on everything all day.
I think didn't care about industrial for a very long time. Like when I was younger, there was a couple of bands. Like when I was sort of figuring out everything, like I got into Rammstein heaps for a moment, and like Atari Teenage Riot,
Yeah, I love Atari.
and surely there was something else. That's all I can really think of. Right, I had like a Filter record
Yeah.
that I kind of really liked for a while, and then drifted away from it. And I don't think I really cared about anything more electronic based for a long time. And then somehow, I don't even know how I discovered health, but I think it was around the same time I got into Youth Code. You just kind of noticed these two bands popping up on the fringes of heavy music, and kept seeing the shirts everywhere, and eventually decided to check it out. And yeah, Slaves of Fear was my introduction to health. And it's funny talking about your history as a band and the old records, because I've gone back to all the old records, and I can't get into the first couple. It's really not for me.
Well, I mean,
Even though Health is now one of my favorite bands, which just seems absurd because I don't think there's any other bands that I can really say that about. Like I usually, if I love a band, I'm like in with their whole discography.
well, the first two records are incredibly experimental records, especially the first record. I mean, the first record we made almost as like a repudiation of anything that we would have been into when we were growing up. I think that we felt like, if you love punk rock or you love like these great records, trying to make something that's like that felt impossible, but it seemed viable to make something somewhere in between a no wave noise post-punk record, where the whole landscape of that is just completely alienating, mostly to the listener. Like there's an part of the artfulness is like how alienating you can be and how esoteric. It's very kind of like snobby.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of shows we were going to. That was the scene. We were all kids, and it was like so immersed in this incredibly insular downtown LA noise scene. And what was inspiring was going to these warehouse shows where now in retrospect, like most people were on the spectrum and everyone was on a lot of drugs. And it was like just about making music that was simultaneously alienating, but also, as you guys would say, taking the piss, because that scene on the East Coast, for example, where it was is very much allied with academia and art school. And, like New York noise or Chicago or places like that, people take themselves really seriously.
Mm.
The way LA approached it was like sort of in the ethos or a spirit of punk rock, but you were making way more experimental music. So I'm not surprised you can't get into those records, because I don't know how the fuck anybody got into those records. I don't even know how we got a career out of that. It was just this weird little moment. Because we put that first record out and then we went on tour with Nine Inch Nails. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't really understand how that all works. Because it's like, now I look back at it and I'm like, it's barely music. And this is coming from, obviously, we're here for Knotfest, but it's like, those are songs.
Yeah.
These are like barely songs, So no offense taken to, I look back on it as an artifact, and like, I mean, our name is an artifact of that. The name Health is a terrible band name in the heavy music world, but as a post-punk, no way. I was really looking at it like Factory Records and like New York no wave, like the soul jazz compilations, where it's like it's all supposed to be about sterility and weirdness, and like Wire as a band name. That now when I see it on a shirt at a metal festival, I'm like, what a fucking bizarre.
I think it looks great on merch. That's why I have so much of it, and it stands out a lot.
That's why we picked it, because it looks great. Terrible to say. If it's loud at all, people think you're saying elf or help or whatever, But yeah, man, like it's been I'd say we have
You should get on stage tomorrow and be like, "What's up, motherfuckers? We are Health."
Yeah, dude. I've been trying to crack the code on that in my head of how to talk to these people in the audience, because all day, I mean, we just started doing metal festivals, and same thing happened in Europe. And it's not about me being snobby. I just like I don't know how to do that. And I don't know if you noticed John try, but he was not.
I must have missed that.
He tried it after the second song because he never normally has a mic, and he was like, "What's up, Not Fest?" And he was just like, I don't know what to do. Because they will reciprocate,
Yeah.
you know, but it's like it's like a dog. They can smell fear, you know. If you're not committed, you need to be like, "What's up, motherfuckers?" But if you kind of half-ass it, and it would make no sense for me to do that because I'm like singing like this like androgynous choir boy or like a Pet Shop Boys song or something. So I can't be like, and I don't have a high register voice as a speaking voice, but in between I can't be like, "What's up, dudes?" So I don't know. I'm trying to figure out a way to like maybe poke fun at myself and that language. I feel like you understand this world better than I don't. I feel like if I make fun of it,
I think it can be done, but you just got to do it in a way that's, not insulting somehow. I reckon it's a code that can be cracked, though. You're just going to have to use some trial and error, perhaps, but these shows are probably too high stakes to be doing that with.
Exactly. I mean, but the thing is, if I do them at smaller shows, it'll be our fans, and I can do whatever I want. Our fans respond. You know what I mean? Like, not whatever I want, but if I talk to them, they like it. What I would actually like to do is like Hatebreed plays after us, right? I would love it. I would love to just be like, "Hey, like, I don't know how to do this. So I'm going to get this guy from Hatebreed to come do these, like the inner between songs, like, yeah, you know,
I reckon we could he'd probably actually be down by the sounds of it.
Yeah. Just like pull a dude and be like, "Hey, like, Jake doesn't know how to do this with you guys. So let me like step in here, you know?"
Nothing would make me happier than to see a Hatebreed relationship blossom from this festival, because like, no offense to any of the other bands, like every band on the festival is very, very good at what they do, but Health and Hatebreed are just the only two that I am truly excited about seeing. Like Slipknot, sick, but seen it a whole bunch of times. Haven't seen Hatebreed in about a decade until yesterday, so
they were fucking awesome yesterday.
Yeah, they're so sick.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah, maybe I'll see. We're talking about maybe at least by Sydney, I can be like, I'll enlist.
We can get Sam to drop it in, perhaps.
Yeah, that'd be fucking funny. Or I could have like a sample bank, you know? I just like, hey, we got this. I got fucking
walk around backstage and get every metal vocalist there to give you a what's up, motherfuckers sample.
Yeah, dude, that'd be sick.
Could you ever see a Hatebreed Health collaboration happening?
I mean, at this stage, I'm pretty much open to almost anything. We've kind of made almost anything work. The hardest thing to make work with our sound is punk-based music, but they have enough heaviness that I think it could totally work. Like we did a Full of Hell one, and that worked.
Yeah, the Youth Codes collab is pretty punk too. It's got that.
You know what I'll do? I'll hit up Randy from Lamb of God to just make me a sample bank of just like talking to metal crowd. And then I just use that. That actually, he would do it. He would think it was fucking hilarious.
How did the Lamb of God relationship start? Because you've collaborated with him twice now.
Very strangely, I think just we were all on lockdown, and I think Randy became a fan first through his girlfriend, which we've heard multiple times from more heavy music dudes. So he posted something on his Instagram about like he surfs and about beaches being closed in his area, and it was to a Health song. And I was like, oh, the fucking guy from Lamb of God posted this with Strange Days on there. And then John hit me up and he was like, Willie from Lamb of God, I think, was just looking to do shit. So he was just kind of trading some ideas back and forth with John, and he sent us this riff. And then we built the song out of it, and then I like did the very electronic chorus, and we were kind of just like, hey, like, do you want to ask Randy if he wants to sing on this? And that was a really interesting one because their fans actually loved it. I mean, I like made a joke at one point. I posted something on Instagram where I was like, "Song's rad until that chick starts singing," and all their fans were like, "I know, dude, it sucks after that." Yeah, and then like one guy's like, "This is a guy from the band," and then nobody even noticed.
Mm.
But the other one, the other collaboration, quote unquote, is they fucking asked us to remix "Laid to Rest," and it was like, dude, people are gonna be so mad. They're gonna be so fucking mad because we did a remix for Rise Against, and it was like the fans didn't know what a remix was.
Yeah.
They were like, "This is fucking gay. There's no guitars," and it's like, it's a remix. Remix. We did a Korn remix, but it wasn't for like we did a remix for Lamb of God of one of their most beloved songs.
It seemed to be received pretty well though, overall, right?
I would say no.
No?
It has a lot of plays
Right.
because it's Lamb of God's biggest song, but I would put the hate ratio in like 90%.
Right. Well,
Like we went to their LA show and I was just giving him shit about it. I was like, dude, like,
why'd you do this to yourself?
well, like we just kind of thought it was funny, but we told them like, well, they asked us for a pull quote for it.
Yep.
And my quote was basically just like, before you get really mad, think about the fact that Lamb of God commissioned this remix and asked us to do it. We are not trying to ruin your favorite song. They're not destroying the masters of the original, but still people were just fucking furious, which I expected.
Well,
It's a pretty angry fan base.
I thought it was cool. Maybe just in my
Randy
circles,
loved it.
Yeah.
They
Well,
loved
then
it.
that's all that matters then.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you ever read Randy's book?
I haven't. I want to actually.
It's one of the best, I guess, music related books that I think I've ever read. I really loved it. He's a brilliant writer.
Dude, they're such cool guys. That like I did not expect that to be like a. We played in Richmond and Randy just came and took photos of the show, and then we just went and saw them in LA. Dude, it was so sick. They played the Forum. It was them and Mastodon, and it was sold out.
Yeah.
It's like to see a band like Lamb of God play a sold out 20,000 cap show is pretty awesome because it was like, it was so fucking heavy. I told him after the show, I was like, actually, I have a funny story about this show. I'll relate this really quick. So the Forum, very, very famous venue in LA. And when you go to shows there, if you're like in the industry, you get to be on the list for the Forum Club. And it's like where all the crazy Lakers parties were. Let me know if you want me to pause. So it's this downstairs like private club you go into, and it's like this killer buffet, and they always have a cake of the show with like the logo of the band or artwork, you know? Like if you saw, like we went and saw Slayer there, it was like Slayer cake, which is pretty sick. So we're there, and during Mastodon, I go to my seats, and they're numbered seats. So they were like really good seats that Lamb of God got for us. And there was people sitting in my seats. So the usher kicks them out of our seats. She's like, "Oh, hey, you're in this guy's seat." And so after Mastodon, I go back into the backstage like catering area, and Danzig's there. And we're like, "Oh shit, should we punish Danzig and try to get a photo?" It's like both for John and I, Misfits are like one of our most favorite bands of all time. I'm like, "Nah, we'll let the king be, you know." And obviously, people like to clown on Danzig or whatever shit. Like, I fucking love Danzig. So then, Lamb of God starts. We go back to our seats, and now the lady, the usher who kicked the other people out of my seats, she sees me and she recognizes immediately, like, "Oh, that's the guy whose seats these are. I'll just get these people out of there." Because now there's more people that are stealing our seats, but now it's Danzig, and he's in our seats. And Lamb of God's playing, so it's crushingly loud, and it's just like some fucking poor middle-aged lady who works at the venue, and I'm trying to explain to her that she can't kick Danzig out of our seats
because it's Danzig.
so I'm like, "No, he's a legend, you know, like you can't." And she's like looking at me like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" But meanwhile, Danzig knows that he's in my fucking seats, and he's like kind of like, you know, he's like, and he's looking at me, kind of like, okay, we're in this guy's seats. And I'm just like, we can't ask Danzig to leave his seats. But even though we had backstage passes for after the show, we didn't have GA, so we couldn't go to the floor. Because the show was sold out, there wasn't other seats, so we kind of were just like wandering around trying to find a place to watch the show from, and we couldn't because Danzig was just in our seats. So we were just like up at the top mezzanine. We're like, we got to go try to make a video of this or something because it was just fucking hilarious. And then we went backstage and we're talking to Randy and we were telling him the story. And he's like, he's coming back here right now. And you could see Randy was nervous. Like that's how, because for him too, he grew up on listening to the fucking Misfits. So it was just such a fucking funny story. We were totally exiled from the show till we just found some other seats where someone had left early to watch the rest of it because Danzig was just fucking stole our seats.
It's so cool that even the biggest bands in the world and your favorite musicians still all have their fanboy moments like that.
I mean, it would be kind of pointless to not. I'm pretty comfortable meeting musicians at this stage. My new thing in my life is I have a really good friend of mine who has worked. I grew up skateboarding. And he's worked in the skateboarding industry for many, many years. So he takes me to all these skating events and I meet all these skaters that are like the best skaters in the world. And that's where I get the most starstruck. Especially if it's like meeting skaters that I grew up like I want to be like, I watched your video part like 200 fucking times in 1 year, but I don't say that, That's like way more I feel way more like anxious around.
It was funny yesterday in the hotel. There's this like crazy math metal, technical psycho metalcore band that I have loved for a long time called the Tony Danza Tap Dance Extravaganza. And like their guitarist plays in a Muir these days, but like Danza is getting back together, doing some shows, maybe doing some new music. I'm not exactly sure, but I guess the guitarist Josh Travis is here teching for A Day to Remember. And he was standing next to me yesterday at the buffet, not yesterday, I think it was the day before, like scooping his eggs or whatever onto his plate while I'm scooping my beans. And I just turned to him and I said, hey man, sorry to fanboy you at breakfast, but just want to say I'm so stoked that Dan's coming back. And he's just like, my man. And we fist bumped and I was like, I got that little anxious rush of like, fuck, I just met that guy.
Yeah, it's like hard to. I think for music stuff, I think that's the way you just described it. That's the most perfect way to do it. When you're, I'm gonna try to figure out how to say this without sounding like a douchebag.
When you're like, just a normal everyday moment as peers.
Well, if you want, what I'm trying to get to is if you want to have a relationship with someone that's mutually respectful, it's difficult to start with like a super fanboy moment.
Yeah.
Because it makes the dynamic odd. Like if I play a show and then I talk to someone outside afterwards on the way to the bus and they're like very lavishing you with praise or something, it's very gratifying and very meaningful to me, but then it's very hard for that conversation to go anywhere else. So like the exchange you had, perfect, because you're not like, oh, we're gonna spend the next week together or something, It's just like, hey, I'm a fan of what you do and thank you, and then like I'm gonna go eat my breakfast. But so it's in certain sense, like we've known him for years, but like we did a track with 9 Inch Nails and it's like we're communicating. I'm like talking to Trent on the phone about the song and whatever. And it's like, won't be productive if I'm just like, dude, this is fucking crazy. I'm freaking out that we're doing, and honestly, normally I'm not really thinking that because I don't think I'll do a good job if I'm thinking that way. So for music, I've been able to like partition that.
So do you remember the last time that you perhaps had a fanboy moment on tour, or you just don't really have them?
Oh no, I mean I totally have them. I just don't. They don't put me out of a comfort zone where I can't be comfortable enough to articulate myself. You know, where you'd be like, "Oh, I'm crazy nervous to." I'm trying to think of like if I got to meet like Martin Scorsese or some shit, I'd be like, I don't know what to say to this guy. He's a
Mm.
genius, you know, kind of thing. I think part of it's also that like I understand music more. So when I see other people that are really, really good at music, I understand how it works. They're just way better at it than me, you know, but I still understand the mechanics of it. Like someone like Trent Reznor, he and I both understand what it is to make a song. He just makes
S-
way better ones.
songs that have made a lot more money than yours.
And just like, I think that there's just something about, I'm a biased because I'm a vocalist, but, and we're at a festival where, you know, like a lot of it is about technicality and like the percussion presence is so like Nine Inch Nails songs are, I wouldn't call them pop songs, but they do connect in that same way. And
Mm.
that's the kind of music that I like in our band. The way the music works is like I gravitate much more towards melodicism and liking immediate catchiness. And I think that part of the reason that his music is so indelible is the way that his voice communicates emotion. So I just feel like that's like genetic, you know, like in the timbre of your vocal cords and the way you can sing. And it's like, I have my own maybe virtues in the way I sing, but like I can't do that. And so that's where I just feel like doesn't matter what I do or how hard I try to write a good song, like I'll never be able to communicate to people that feeling. And it's like, you know, like fucking Nina Simone or some shit. It's like, try as you might, you're not going to sing like that. So,
Mm.
you know, you just try to make up for it in other ways.
I think you've got a pretty unique voice in the scheme of things, though. Like, I can't think of any immediate comparisons.
I can't, I mean, I don't know. When we did Death Magic in the British press, everybody's kept comparing my voice to Neil Tennant from Pet Shop Boys, but nobody in the United States did that. So that was like a very English
Right.
thing. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, you just work with what you have. You know what I mean? Like, none of us shred. That's the funny thing about being on this festival. Not only were the odd band out, but like we're the only band that doesn't kind of shred. I mean, I guess Hatebreed doesn't really shred either. It's like it's pummeling aggressive music, but it's
They
not.
still have a few solos here and there.
Yeah, yeah. We don't shred at
Yeah,
all.
you're never going to be ripping a absolutely smoking guitar solo.
No, that's not our, you know.
Like up until this record, right? Wasn't most of the guitars were all sort of sample pad stuff, right?
I mean,
Like the heavier ones, I mean, the chunkier stuff.
yeah. Cut shit up, or like I'd play like some sort of palm muted thing, and then we'd like fucking marry it with an arpeggiator and like a fucking transient bass hit, and, you know, like trying to think of it like very much like processing everything. Yeah, I mean, like the biggest influences on my guitar playing would have been like coming up would have been like Lee Ronaldo and fucking Johnny Marr. You know what I mean?
Names that I don't recognize. So.
Lee Ronaldo would be the other guitar player from Sonic Youth, and then Johnny Marr being the guitarist from the Smiths. You know, very much not heavy guitar. It's like quirky, like weird guitar playing.
It's funny. I was never really. I still wouldn't say I'm familiar with Sonic Youth, but people would always talk about how Deaf Heaven were very much influenced by them, or had Sonic Youthy kind of sounding parts. And then I went and listened to some Sonic Youth eventually, and was like, oh yeah, I can hear that in Deaf Heaven.
I think that Carrie definitely is like a guitar player who has listened to a lot of post rock. You know, I mean, that's what it's a post rock. Sunbather, the one that broke through, is like it's a post rock instrumentation with black metal singing that like has major key. Like that's why Dreamhouse is so fucking rad. It's in a major key with a dude screaming. It's like a super emotional song with a black metal vocalist on it and blast beats. That's why I love that album so much when it came out. But I think there's a lot of other bands that I would that bands that would be influenced by Sonic Youth, but they have like all this like kind of early emo-y stuff in the guitar playing. Like I know Carrie, and like the way he plays guitar is.
So is that comparison a bit off?
No, I wouldn't say it's. I mean, Carrie is a very eclectic music listener, so he probably. The biggest thing about Sonic Youth. Do you play guitar?
No, I can play a few chords, but never really stuck with it enough to do more than that.
So if early Sonic Youth specifically, it's like it's so incredibly unique because all the guitars were like modded, like they do all this weird shit to them, and they're all alternate tunings, like entirely. So there's no other band's guitars that they can kind of sound like Sonic Youth, but it doesn't really, It sounds very strange. It's all kind of out of tune, but I don't know. It's worth like, I'll send you a little YouTube documentary on Sonic Youth. There's this fucking guy you got to get into, that John and I just love.
Yeah.
It's this guy that his YouTube handle is Trash Theory, which is a sick ass name. And he just does these little 15 to 50 minute vignette documentaries about little micro genres of music. So it'll just be like about how did Britpop become Britpop, or like shoegaze before Loveless, My Bloody Valentine, and it'll just be about that. And there's a fucking great one about Sonic Youth.
Maybe in 10 years he'll be uploading a 15-minute documentary on the origins of cum metal.
I hope he does it sooner than that. No, he mentioned us, and he did an industrial one, and I was like, "Fuck yeah!" I think he mentioned Youth Code, Three Teeth, and us, and I was like, "All right, sweet."
Have you seen any bands coming up where it's like they're obviously worshipping health?
I don't. You said we were a bands band. We talked we did this collaborative track with Bad Omens, and we were talking to Noah, and he was like telling us that we get referenced in production settings all the time in the sort of metalcore scene. And he was like, not just our band, like Spirit Box, like other bands are referencing your guys' records in the studio, but I don't necessarily hear it in those. But I could be a blind spot. You know what I mean? Where someone might be like,
I think would be able to perhaps point to some of the sort of electronic elements or production values that you could kind of see mirrored, but in terms of actually just straight up sounding like health, I don't think I've come across that yet.
He told us that there was a track on their last record where he was like, I was just trying to rip off this song on Death Magic.
Right.
But I wouldn't have picked up on that. And, part of the issue with that is going back to the same thing we were talking about before, is like, we just don't have enough of an immediately identifiable. I think we have a very identifiable sound. We just don't have. If we had something that had that kind of magic to it, we'd be a bigger band. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing wrong with some of my favorite bands are small bands that don't like grow into some ginormous phenomenon. But just it might be harder to make a record that sounds like us because there isn't something that's so identifiable to rip off. Like, it's easier to rip off Rammstein or Ministry because it's like, what does the guitar do? It's like it does the same thing every song, and it's like a hallmark,
And I suppose there's not maybe apart from the vocals, there's not like the one main element that sort of makes health.
Well, also when you change your sound every fucking record, like every single record sounds kind of like a different band, which we were just kind of doing. We're not trying to do some Bowie kind of like, concept thing. I think we just felt like we had the freedom to do whatever we wanted between records.
I think it's kind of interesting that you seem to continuously refer to health as though it's a small band or something, or not that big, but like you've got 2 million monthly listeners on Spotify. Like, some of those songs have been streamed so many times. Like, I'm sure the collaborations have a bit to do with that, but certainly not a small band by any stretch.
I mean, we've like been able to have a career, and I'm super proud of you're in the music scene. It's like it's hard to get anybody to pay attention, especially now in the attention economy. So it's by no means. When you're a band's band, you invariably end up becoming friends with people who are in really popular bands, you know? So then that makes you, and it's not like an inferiority thing. It's just like, you
just know that you're like a small band compared to Bad Omens.
Yeah. It's just like, we're friends with those dudes. And like, I went and did that song with them at Sick New World. And there was like fucking 50,000 people watching the show. I'm like, that's a big band. That's not my band. You know what I mean? So I think that just like, as how I end up defining it. Like, obviously in the grand scheme of things, like here we are at Knotfest and it's like Slipknot is a fucking big ass band, obviously that's a cultural phenomenon. And I just don't expect that out of us, but I do appreciate what you're saying. Like our last tour of Australia was kind of hard for me to process.
Completely sold out.
Yeah.
Next tour will be in rooms like 1,000 cap bigger than that one, and they weren't small rooms.
Yeah. So that's hard to process, and I think that there is something kind of what you were touching on before. It's not just that the world's shitty. The world is shitty, but there's all these things that have kind of like a confluence of the way John interacts with the fan base and all the nerd culture stuff. And now it's like kids that are just perpetually online and very internet literate with this whole sort of Venn diagram of overlapping things. It's like anime, nerd culture, memes, fucking OnlyFans, gaming, aggressive extreme music, like all kind of coalescing, and those little cultural niches are actually so much. The internet has made possible so many things to get fucking huge that would have been just a bunch of isolated weirdos that didn't know that so many other people were into the same thing.
I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and he was talking about how, because he used to play in a band that was, quite big, and he was talking about how like one of his family members, like his auntie or something, was telling him about how his like cousin, his band was like starting to get big and was going on tour. And so in his mind, they're playing like the 200, 300 cap rooms. Like he was when his band was sort of starting out. And then it's like, turns out it's their third tour and they're playing like 1,000 cap rooms. Yeah. And he was talking about how that's just, you used to have to go out and grind. And now if you just connect, you can connect and blow up really, really fast.
Yeah. I mean, it depends. Like it used to be that way too, though, where you could be a band and you were young
and a label would pick you up. And
yeah. Like our manager manages this band called The Neighborhood who were fucking massive. And it's like they were 18 when their band started. And the second song they ever wrote was like a global radio alternative rock hit. Like they were like in high school and there's like, you're playing like at the end of the tour, you're playing a 6,000 cap, like, but that's actually the only people I know. I love that they're like one of the guitar players is a good friend of mine, and it's just like he's never had a job. He's just like, it's like Keith Richards or some shit. I was in art school, and then I was in the Rolling Stones, and we were huge. And I'm like, oh man, such a dream. I don't think I would have lived if that had happened to us. But kids these days are a lot more like responsible, I feel like.
You think you would have killed yourself with the partying?
I mean, we just like raged pretty hard, even just DIY touring, like playing a fucking house show and sleeping in a van. So I think if all of a sudden it had been like, oh, you have lots of money, there's a bus and a bunch of people to make sure that you don't really have to set anything up or do anything. It's like, we would have just been, we were pretty fucked, but like we were still took everything really seriously.
Yep.
Because we had to do everything, like we screened our own shirts when we started and fucking pressed our first 7-inch, and like John and I would book the fucking tours, like contacting bands and then like sleep in the van, you know? But you can't do that and be totally fucked.
Yeah.
But you can be totally fucked, which is what we wanted to be. If you all of a sudden are big.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if I would have died. I probably would have just had to get sober sooner.
Yeah. So you've been sober for almost a decade now, you were saying?
Oh my God, I guess so. I'm not like a, we don't need to talk about that. I'm not
You don't
like,
want to talk about that?
no, it's not like that. It's a private thing. I just like, one thing I don't like about sober people is that they just fucking, it's like some Trump or some shit. They got to work it into every conversation.
Mm.
So if it's something you feel is interesting as an interviewer, then I'm happy to talk about it.
Maybe I just find it interesting because I'm on the sober stretch, at least early on in it. And I've done it several times before, but this time it feels like it's sticking. So maybe it's becoming part of my personality. And maybe that sucks. I don't know.
No, it's not that it's. I guess my reluctance is only that I just don't like it when people make it so much the first thing that comes through the door about them.
Right.
You know, like, hey, I'm sober, so let me tell you that first. Just like,
well, we have been talking about music for an hour, so
yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I'm a fucking alcoholic.
Like was same. Was there a moment where it like was there one singular sort of moment where it was like, okay, this needs to stop for you, or?
I mean, like what the community would call a bottom. I didn't have like I fucking ran over an old lady while I was drinking out of a flask and then went to prison moment. You know, everybody's is different. I think for me, it was just getting worse and worse. And then it simultaneously came to a head where it like threatened my personal life and my professional life at the same time, where it was like my girlfriend, who's now my like life partner, who I had a child with and has been incredibly supportive of me, was like, okay, like if you want to keep getting fucked up, you can't live here anymore. Like we cannot live together.
Yep.
And then I was trying to work on new music after Death Magic, and my friend and producer canceled like the remaining month of dates. He was just like, I'm not working with you if you're like this. So I was like, oh, okay. Like, and my mom at the time was like really sick too, which when you get into it, it's like, I was using that as an excuse, but it was just addiction. It's fucking just trash, selfish bullshit. Like, oh, my mom's sick. She's going to die. It's I'll get more fucked up because I'm sad.
I got to deal with the pain, bro.
Yeah. And it was totally just like, I am just an addict and I want to keep getting fucked up. So I'm going to like mask it under some sort of, oh, well, don't you have empathy for my depressive state or some whatever, you know, such bullshit misdirection. And all of that just kind of coalesced into the same moment. And it's just like, okay, I can keep getting fucked up and taking pills and drinking, and then I can only do that. And I'm functional enough to do that. But it's like, if I want to be a good partner and a good son and take my band seriously, I can't. And I just realized when all three of those things like happened at the same moment, where it's like, if I want to keep getting fucked up, I got to move out of my house and I have to somehow convince some other producer. You know, it was like my manager is like, do you need to go to rehab? There was just all kind of happened all at once.
So then you just got sober and finished the record, stayed with your partner, and
yeah, and then I had a fucking kid, and you know, it's weird, dude. It's like if you keep doing it, almost the more disturbing part is just how, and this is just true of any aspect of life, especially as you get older, is how fast the time gets away from you, where you're just like, holy fuck, it's been that long, you know? But I just don't think that I could have. It's made me definitely realize that, you know, a lot of great artists, they have, especially in music, because novelists or directors or painters or playwrights or something, it's very common to hit your creative peak in your middle age. But with popular music, that's not so much the case. And that's because the movements are they're popular culture. They have to resonate with a time
They-
period.
They're generally youth oriented.
Yeah, and you're most connected to that when you're young.
Yep.
The internet has sort of dislodged all of those traditional cycles, which is lovely for a lot of people, but including us. But I think that like there's this misnomer that people get shitty as an artist like once they get sober, but I think that's usually just more related to youth. Because you
Yeah.
can't, when you're young, you can get fucked up and work.
People don't usually get sober until like they're in their 30s, 40s.
Yeah. And it's like when you look at whether or not someone gets sober or not in music, it's like usually by the time they're in their 30s or 40s, like especially if they become a really culturally significant band, they've done that work when they're young. So it's just a coincidence that it's when they were all fucked up. You know, like obviously there's going to be some exceptions like the Dead or something where it's like totally entwined with the music that you're on a shitload of hallucinogenic drugs. But mostly it's like, and there's a lot of music where cocaine played a really big factor in making the music, but it's more, I think it's a factor of vibrancy and creative energy in your youth. And you end up doing something that's really amazing and also happen to be really fucked up. And then later on, as your life falls apart, you just can't maintain that anymore.
This is kind of a weird sort of offshoot thought I just had. I just because my dad was, he was a cop. He was very anti-drug, and he'd always, have horror stories to tell me to try and make sure I didn't go down that path. And of course, he inevitably failed. But I remember him telling me once that he heard an interview on the radio with Trent Reznor, who was talking about how he was frustrated as a musician these days because he felt like he burnt himself out on drugs and kind of torched his creativity a little bit, and that he didn't feel like he could sort of reach the heights that he used to because he felt that his drug use had maybe stunted his creative growth or something in the long run.
That's interesting.
Yeah, could be an entirely made up misquote. I don't know.
No,
just a memory that I pulled up from a very long time ago.
I mean, especially as an alcoholic, I don't think that alcohol is particularly helpful for the creative process. I think there's a lot of other drugs that could be much more intertwined with the like I'm like just a downer kind of person. So I don't think downers are very good for creativity. I could see why someone could be like uppers or hallucinogens that are mind expanding could be a crutch or an integral ingredient in your creativity. But if you're just like smacked out or hammered, like maybe if you're fucking Charles Bukowski or something, but like even Hemingway wrote hungover and not drunk. He would Faulkner or whatever they would get fucked up when they finished writing. Because if you're trying to write something shit-faced, like you could do it if you're a sloppy ass rock band, like Thin Lizzy could be fucked up and write god tier music.
Yeah.
Some of the greatest music ever written kind of shit. Or like first wave punk rock, New York, like Ramones or whatever, just be speeded out. But for me, it was like, I don't think it was really helping.
Yeah.
So
I found psychedelics really inspired a lot of at least what I was sort of writing about lyrically in my 20s.
Yeah,
earlier bands.
I think that those have a lot more.
Yeah.
There's a lot more creativity to be gleaned from, like alcohol and
Alcohol's is probably the least insightful drug there is.
yeah, and that's why I was so addicted to it. Is I am a kind of I run very emotionally hot, and I'm hypersensitive and anxiety and depression prone. So I wanted something to deaden that.
Yeah.
Like, and I still have like crazy insomnia problems. So it's like going out and doing a bunch of stimulating drugs is going to like make me super anxious and hyper aware of myself and like existential dread and all these things. And then I already couldn't sleep. So it's like I needed to go down, you know? Like, luckily, I never got really into like opiates because I really like them. Um, I'm a little disappointed because of fentanyl. I never can have my heroin phase. It just took that away from me. It's just ruined it. But yeah, I wanted oblivion, not insight.
Yeah.
And I think that I was pretty aware of that early on. Like I wasn't. I wish I had that curiosity of mine to just be like, oh, I want to like explore and expand and be experiencing. It's like, no, I want to escape. Um, and it's not that I had a lot of fun partying,
Mm.
but it was definitely always pretty, like, I always resonated with that destructiveness of it, but just destructiveness, self destruction when you're young is sexy and cool. And, and then in
Yeah.
middle age or like in your 30s, it's just
Sad.
fucking pathetic.
Yeah.
And then it's edgy again when you're old. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you see like a fucking 70-year-old man who's like shit faced smoking a cigarette, it's like he's kind of a gangster because he
Mm.
like made it that far. But in the middle years, it's just pathetic. Like when you see a drunken, I mean, it's weird for me to relate to now because as a parent, because my family partied really hard. Like, and I used to party with my parents, and like there wasn't very many like anti-drug talks.
Mm.
And now when I look back on being a kid, I was like, man, my whole family was like fucking drunk all the time. Like it was a different time, and like we were like a blue collar family, but it was like it's so hard for me to relate, like to have a bunch of people over if I had people at my house and my kids there to try to be thinking about like, oh, my parents were just like fucked up. And I just feel like so much responsibility that I can't imagine that.
Mm.
But it also wasn't a bad childhood either.
Yeah. I guess, some of the best times of my life, I've been completely out of my fucking mind and like drinking just to feel like I could function. And yeah, I guess we can keep going around in circles with it, but as
Well,
you
I mean,
say, it gets sad.
Well, the
eventually.
tricky thing is that what sober people will be reluctant to tell you is that drugs are fucking awesome.
Yeah.
That's why they're so popular. That's why the people will never ever stop doing them. And that's one thing that's hard about like sober communities is like maybe they were like there are some people that like the moment they do drugs, like 17 years old, they're just fucking wreck. And by 22, they're in and out of jail or whatever, or they're smoking meth every day and they fucking, get their kid taken away from them. Like, but for a lot of people, it just gets away from you. But there's it's a lie to say that they're just bad.
Mm.
And like, we are sort of cursed with this high level of awareness as mammals that had some evolutionary benefit, obviously, in terms of being able to critically think and organize and become one of the most successful species and the most successful mammalian species in a lot of ways. But it does nothing. There would be no evolutionary pressure to salve pain and fear and search for meaning unless it negatively impacted birth rates. So it's like we're saddled with all this shit, and it's like, dude, you want to get fucked up? Like, try to turn that off a little bit. And it's kind of a people that get really into mindfulness and all these different things that it's like it's kind of directed at the same thing. It's like
Yeah.
a less or like, okay, now I got to exercise all the time. It's like
Yeah,
you're still just trying to release dopamine in
There's
your
something that will eternally need itching.
yeah. And it's like, I think that's the part that can get frustrating when you're talking to people who are sober is just like, because it's dangerous to romanticize it because you don't want to start thinking about how awesome they are because it makes you want to get fucked up,
Yeah.
you know?
It's something that I've sort of been experiencing over the last few months that I've found a kind of bit of a rush in its own sort of right. It's just being able to go into a social situation where I typically would have just felt way too anxious to be there without, a couple of beers under my belt, at least to start the night off, and just being able to overcome that a bit, and just be confident and go and have a chat, introduce yourself to someone without a beer. And it's kind of like a rush in its own right for me at this point.
Some people are fucking great at that, man. Like Sarah from Youth Code, Beej in our band. Beej is California sober. He'll smoke a bunch of weed, but like these motherfuckers will go to karaoke sober. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
That's terrifying individual right there.
I don't know if I could do that.
Sarah will just be like, belt it out. Like, I'm going to do karaoke for 3 hours, stone cold sober. I'd rather get a fucking cavity filled than do that. Seriously.
Yeah.
Like, shoot Novocaine into my gums.
How did you find adapting to the touring lifestyle as a freshly sober individual?
So I never, even in the depths of, as I got later on, I had some nights where I played fucked up and then fucked the show up. But kind of as a rule, as a band, we never really played very fucked up. So we'd get really fucked up
after the show
and then be like hungover as shit during the show and then would start again. And then as it started getting worse when I was on tour, I'd have to go on multiple day benders. So then there'd be like 2 days where like inevitably I would be fucked up at the show because I had been fucked up for many days without stopping. So it wasn't that hard to adapt to playing shows sober, because then you just feel like I'd be like, oh, I'm playing a show and I'm not hungover. This feels amazing. The hardest part about it is just the boredom. Touring's fucking boring. I mean, that's like a kind of unfair thing to say. I see people on tour that are properly motivated to be like, I'm going to go experience the city, or like, I'm going to go to the gym every day. And it's like, I just don't have that positivity in me. So, it can be a bit lonely or a bit boring. And the hardest part is like, I don't want a big sober carbon footprint, So I'm not going to be like.
What do you mean by that?
I'm not going to be like, hey, I'm sober. This is a dry tour.
Yeah.
I don't want to see people drinking around me. It's like,
you don't want to be the buzzkill.
Well, and I'm not saying that that's wrong. Every sober person.
Some bands need that.
Every sober person's different. But I also think that there's something to be said for like accepting your own responsibility. It's like, it's not anybody else's fault that I was a fuck up and I can't drink anymore. You know what I mean? So you can't build your life around waiting for everybody else to get with the program and be whatever, But it can be hard, especially because alcohol makes people idiots. Like if you're on a bus and you're trying to sleep and it's 5 a.m. and like everyone is shit-faced and like they're just functionally stupid. Like it's hard to be around that. You're like, oh yeah, you're a fucking idiot. You know,
I've been that person to
everyone
so many times.
That's what I'm saying. So have I. So it's like glass house, cast no stones. But at the same time, you're like, oh, this blows.
It's funny to me. Like I used to pick arguments, I suppose, with all the straight edge guys in the kind of hardcore scene that I sort of came up in, just being like, this is fucking lame. Like, partying rules, like, you guys suck. And then like,
which is true. I mean,
and then like what 20 years on from that sort of era of my life when I was having those arguments, like I'm the sober one now and half of those guys are like drug dealers. And
I was totally going to say, because that's the truth of the straight edge movement is it's like all the dudes that were X'd out all drink or get fucked up, and then like all of us are like, oh, I'm sober now.
Yeah. The script had to flip.
Yeah, there's like a beautiful symmetry to it.
I really wish that I could, be the type of person that could just drink responsibly, as they say. I just have one or two, but it's like, I know that if I do that, it'll be before long. Oh, as I think you said the other day, what a state of moral depravity or something. You end up in just like absolute misery,
incomprehensible demoralization.
Yeah.
So, I would. Here's what I would argue about that. I disagree, and I think that if you go deeper into sobriety, at least sobriety from alcohol, or at least to me, I'm a fucking alcoholic. One of the most alcoholic things that my brain does, and it's hilarious to me, is when I see people who don't have a drinking problem and they have a couple of beers, my fucking caveman lizard brain has this muscle memory knee jerk inner monologue where I go, man, I don't understand. It's like, if I didn't have a drinking problem like you, like, I would just get wasted. Like, why aren't you getting fucked up? That's literally what I think. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's why it doesn't work.
Yeah. Because they don't have that alcoholism thing.
Yeah. They're just like, it's like, oh, I had like a nice cocktail with dinner. It's like, don't you want to have like 50 more? Like until you can't. And the awesome thing about drinking when you're young is like crazy shit happens. You know, like you wake up the next day and you're like, holy shit. Like I did a bunch of crazy shit last night. Like I ended up in some bizarre place, some bizarre ass people I didn't know. It's like, we did drugs. Then I went to some other place, woke up at some chick's house. It's like, that is the awesome part.
Yeah.
A beer or two at dinner is fucking lame, dude. You don't get drunk. You're getting older. You're just going to get fat from it. And it's like, okay, like, honestly, it doesn't taste that good. You know what I mean? So there was a guy once who said something about, I was in an AA meeting because I'm not an AA guy, but when I started trying to stay sober, I was like, okay, I gotta like every morning just go to an AA meeting so I don't drink in my car instead of like, you know, because I was doing shit where like I'd be like, tell my partner, I'm like, hey, I'm going to the store, and like on the walk back from the store, I would drink a flask of vodka and then like put gum in my mouth or some shit like that. And so it's like, okay, I'm gonna figure out a way to not do that today. And this dude said this thing that was fucking hilarious to me, man. It was like, I can't remember how he put it, but he was like, it's like, you know, you're gonna say some shit like, oh, I just want to have a glass of wine at the dinner. And it's like, what are you, a fucking old Italian auntie? Like, who the fuck cares about like the glass of wine? Like, sure, wine, if you're a foodie, it's very enriching to the meal, but it's like alcohol has, this is part of what's so insidious about it, is that we have given it this veneer of civility through ritualization of like food culture, social culture, and it's a very inefficient drug. So you drink it, and we like figure out, I'm a mixologist and all this bullshit, but it's like when you do hard drugs where it's like, just like put the drug in me so I can get fucked up. Like I just smoke it or I just snort it or whatever. There was this great food writer who talked about that in like Russia, and vodka is like the only cultural form of alcohol where there's no disguise of what it is. It's just a drug.
Yep.
Like you drink a shot of it and then you maybe chase some orange juice or some tomato juice afterward, and it's just there to get fucked up. And it's like, we dress it up in all these ways, but it's just about getting fucked up. And so you wouldn't be like, I just want to do a little cocaine. I don't want to get fucked up. It's like the cocaine is so you can get high. So to me, it's been very easy for me like to let go of the idea of like, oh, I just want a couple of beers. Like, why do I want a couple of beers? A couple of beers does nothing for me. I want the drug. Like, if I just wanted it to taste good, I just could drink something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, okay, it tastes okay, but the point is to get fucking... When you're an alcoholic or you're a drug addict, the point is...
the end result.
Here's what I think. I know what you're saying is like, I wish I was the kind of guy who could like have a couple beers every once in a while and then like a couple of times a year just get fucking smashed.
Yeah.
You know?
That'd be the dream.
Yeah, like... My friends are in town. I haven't seen them for 2 years. Like, we're going to go on a proper bender and wake up tomorrow and feel like we're going to die, and then I'm not going to do that again for like 5 months.
Yep.
But I can't do that. That will turn into
Doing it again the next week.
for me, it would turn into starting that morning,
Right.
and then it would just go until like my, I got kicked out of my house and my shit like that, So, yeah, but for me, it all centers around like still wanting to get fucked up. And so I think once you accept that about yourself, then it makes it easier to let go of the like, I just want to have a beer. Because if you're honest, like you don't want to have a beer. Having a beer is not that great. How many times have you had a beer and been like, man, remember 2 days ago when I just had that beer with dinner? That was so awesome.
Well, I think like even for me, like non-alcoholic beers, like there's just something about them when I just the ritual, of this, like doing a hard day's work or something, and just having that first sip. I still, even if I'm drinking a non-alcoholic beer, my body will just go.
So Beach puts
little placebo effect, and it just kind of feels right.
Beach puts NAs on our rider, and non-alcoholic beer technology, especially in the United States, is just like it's like vegan shit. It's like gotten so much better. Because before it'd be like you're drinking like O'Doul's or Sharps or something. That's what we'd have in the US, and it's like tastes like fucking piss. I find for me, it's a really bad idea because a lot of NAs are not zero beers. Zero beers are fine,
but they're like 0.0001.
Yeah, and like, there's a great Raymond Carver short story about a guy who like gets back into his house with his wife and his kid, and he's trying to be sober. It's both simultaneously hilarious and so incredibly depressing, where he's pretending to work on something in the garage and he's just drinking like 40 non-alcoholic beers to try to get a buzz on. And it's like he's so full that his stomach starts to distend and all this shit. And he's just slamming them because there's like 0.3, so if I drink 40 of them, it'll be like I had a 6-pack. And that's the kind of shit. But for like real sober guys, like you don't drink an NA because it's like, if you were a crackhead, you wouldn't be like, well, I'll just smoke this piece of soap out of my crack pipe because it reminds me of when I used to smoke crack, because that just puts you like, I've had a good NA before and been like, now I want 100 beers. So that's not a good idea. Like, I'm not like so much of a fiend that like my partner occasionally drinks. Like, we have booze in the house. We have a liquor cabinet. And I have never once, for whatever reason, found myself up in the middle of the night, like
just staring at it.
I can get a little, whatever. I've had, like I'm handing someone a beer, like, oh, hand me a beer. And I'm like, I have a little, but it's never been close. But in NA, having the hops or something hit the back of your throat. I mean, by the end of it, I couldn't even really get drunk on beer, dude. I was like, okay, I won't do anything to destroy my relationship, and I won't do anything crazy if I only drink beer. But then like, I'm going to get fucking fat. Because it'd be like, okay, I'll drink like 30 beers today. But I won't like say something super crazy or do something super crazy or not remember what I did. But then once I started like drinking Jameson or something on top of it, then it would go.
Yeah, I think the last time I drank, I started with beers, and by the end of the night, I was drinking Fireball whiskey and like just mixing my own vodka cokes. And like every other time that I decided I had to take a break from drinking, just like said something so crazy, hurtful, and destructive that it was just like, Jesus, dude. Except this time it was like, normally I have like, because I've quit drinking for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, like done that a whole bunch of times, and I'll always think I can ease back into it. And then it might take a week, it might take a year, but I fuck up again. And I would always be like, I need to have a break. But this time it was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, it wasn't the last time I drank, but I had I don't even know if I ever talked about this. I went on like my girlfriend went out of town, and I went on like a 5 or 6 day bender of like being continuously super fucked up the entire time. Like there wasn't very many like peaks and valleys. And then I think by like whatever, there was a one day where I realized I was like, I haven't eaten in like 3 days. Like legitimately, I'm just only getting calories through alcohol, like a person who lives on the street. Like I basically am a street person. I just have a network of support. And I was like trying to get downstairs in my apartment. I was so fucked up, I fell down the stairs, like rolled down a huge flight of stairs, and like crashed into a bookcase. And I was so fucked up, I couldn't get up for like hours. And I was like, okay, that's not good, you know? And then I had to like hide that I like ripped the banister off the stairs, or like I said it, you know, it was some other fucking, and that wasn't even it. I like still kept drinking. But I think the last time I drank was like started with beers, and then I started drinking mezcal, and I just like woke up like at a friend's house on the floor and like hadn't made it home. Couldn't go to work at the studio. Whatever. We don't have to get in it, but it was, you know, it all got really bad, you know. So that was the last time. I have no idea why it stuck. Like I was basically got kicked out of my house. I just like flew home to Seattle. It didn't tell anyone. Didn't tell my partner where I was. She was like, "Where are you?" I was like, "I'm home." She was like, "What do you mean home?" "I'm home. Where are you?" And
So
I was like,
went and put yourself into a little self-imposed.
I just like went and
rehab
saw my
exile?
mom, and I was just like, "I'm in Seattle." I was like, you know, and then somehow, I think that like the second night I was home, I was just like gonna get fucked up. I was just gonna drink a bunch of beer or something, and somehow I didn't. And then I don't know.
Here you are 9 years later.
Yeah, so maybe this is your. Maybe this is the beginning. We don't. You can edit all this shit out.
And we'll see. I'm perfectly fine being candid about all this stuff.
Oh, I just mean if it's too fucking long too.
Mm,
I mean, it all depends on what kind of, like you and I were discussing. You're figuring out what kind of podcast you want. Like
yeah.
the freeform model tends to run long.
Yeah.
So
I think the first episode I did the other day was like 55 minutes to an hour or something, and we've been chatting for like an hour and a half, I think now. So we'll see what I guess a good way to put it out there and see what people respond to. But I tend to prefer the sort of hour to 2 hours. Anything more than that gets a bit.
Yeah, when it just becomes like ambient music. People just put it on and they don't really listen. You know,
are you much of a podcast listener?
Yeah, I think so. Like I have I kind of burned out on it a little bit. And I think I told you that I tried to start a podcast and I had like a pretty viable idea, and it kind of got stolen by a big podcast network. That's not a paranoia thing. It actually happened.
I was going to say, is that a story you want to tell?
I don't.
Too much to get into for a second time in 2 days?
Well, no, it's more just like I don't want to like say anything libelous about a large corporation that owns an IP. But it was very legitimate. Like the way we were starting, it was like we had sort of like a producer, and it was with a friend of mine who was an LA Times music journalist. And we were working with a big talent agency in LA to sort of develop it. And then I can't speak as to the actual inner workings of what happened, but what seemed to happen was that once we had the pilot and we're feeling really good about it, it had a pitch deck and was supposed to be like arranging to like meet and have it sent to like major podcast networks. The liaison from the talent agency went sort of dark, and then a podcast of almost the exact same concept came out from that agency. And we were like, okay, we need to get a lawyer. And then the lawyer was like, hey, like these agencies like have, you know, legal retained.
They know what they're doing when they're doing this.
They you know, there wasn't anything egregious enough. Intellectual property is pretty tricky. Unless there's like something that's like directly. So that was sort of deflating. And we kind of talked about trying to revamp the idea. And then, you know, both of us doing it, all three of the people working on it all had other, you know, like I have the band and then I had a kid, and like my friend was still a journalist, like full time. And
But in terms of podcasts, like in your listening, what's one that you'd say you listen to the most regularly?
As I'm like kind of like old guy style, and I really like the more NPR-ish like prepared podcasts. So like I'm a really big fan of history podcasts. So I like Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. I don't know if you ever listen to that. Dude, it's fucking incredible. Like it'll be like he'll do a podcast series on World War I, and like there's 6 of them, and each one is 5 hours long.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what it was called, but there was one I listened to a while back that was just all about the history of Israel Palestine. And it was just insane.
There's another great one called Fall of Civilizations that's fucking incredible. It's each episode is just about a previous, typically ancient history. I don't think he's done anything even in the 18th century. It's usually before that, but it'll be like Constantinople, like the fucking history of Constantinople, and it usually starts with like the geography, like how the Mediterranean was formed, and then like the first settlements on the Bosporus, and then goes through like the entire history of Constantinople into Istanbul, like it becoming the seat of the Eastern Roman Empire and all that kind of shit. It's like fucking awesome. And then for more like just candid stuff, I like conversational stuff. I'm also a huge fan of the Freakonomics podcast. I don't know if you ever listen to that. It's like it was made for NPR radio, but then it branched out into a podcast. It's like an economics and technology podcast. And I like skateboarding shit.
You ever listen to the QAA podcast?
No, what's that?
It was originally called QAnon Anonymous.
Oh, yeah. No, I have.
But yeah, they shortened it to QAA. But that sort of stuff, like that and TrueAnon, they're probably my favorite podcasts. Just like the conspiracy theory stuff. But analyzing conspiracy, I guess they're different. QAA is analyzing the conspiracy theories from a perspective rooted in reality, but TrueAnon is kind of the conspiracy theories that are actually real.
Yeah.
But I find that shit very fascinating, particularly through the last few years.
I've kind of fucking overdosed on conspiracy theories. It's made me like, even if there is a conspiracy theory that's real, I'm like, all right, whatever, dude. I'm so over it.
Were you a conspiracy guy growing up?
No. I mean, I'm a misanthrope and I'm pretty skeptical of people, but I think that I'm very suspicious of things taking on quasi-religious function. And I think conspiracy theories are that for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think that even if this conspiracy theory is horrifying, its order and meaning, which is for humans more grounding than just like nobody has any idea what's going on and reality is unfixed and nothing means anything. And you're just a biological process, like a rock rolling down a hill, and you have no free will. I think that's what I believe. So like that's scarier than like lizards in the fucking White House,
I mean, speaking of like the White House, like something I've found quite perversely enjoyable, I guess, to witness over the last couple of days is just all the Epstein file stuff and Trump making this big show of the information that's already been released and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, obviously, like those guys were best friends. And you really think that, like Epstein died under Trump's presidency, whether he was, suicided or killed or whatever. But you think that he's really going to actually put all that out there, and all these conspiracy people that got him elected are just absolutely losing their minds right now. And it's the best TV show on the planet.
I mean, maybe I have like a rudimentary understanding of what a conspiracy. I mean, I know what the word definition means, but it's like the Epstein thing to me. That's what's so insidious about conspiracy theories is that, well, now people need them like their daily memes, They I need a new one. I need more shit. Like, what's this? Like, the Super Bowl's rigged because Taylor Swift or whatever.
Yeah.
They need something daily.
It's like a drug where it just needs to get more and more extreme to
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
hitting.
But with something like the Epstein thing, it's like QAnon, rooting QAnon, or like the antecedent of it, Pizzagate, around like the corridors of power being a bunch of child molesters is like, because they are a bunch of child molesters. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like,
It kind of obscures the truth in a way, right?
yeah, it's like they don't eat babies for the adrenochrome because that's some shit that Hunter Thompson made up.
Mm.
But they are trading underage girls like they're fucking playing cards, like on an island that they go to on a private jet because they can't get their dicks hard anymore unless it gets more and more crazy, just like every other weird, addictive thing that people do. And so it's like, yeah, it does get obscured. It's like you also can sell it to people who are like, they're fucking pedophiles. And it's like, yeah, that they are. I mean, like, I think Bill Clinton is super charismatic. That's part of why he got elected. But then when his wife is running for the presidency and it's just like, hey, he was on the fucking island.
Mm.
It's kind of hard to like, if you're already on the train of like the liberals are, and of course, as you know, from if you follow this shit, it's like, it's not liberals and it's just powerful people. That's everybody is in Epstein's Rolodex. Like, that's why it's like, I don't feel like when people are like, Epstein didn't kill himself, I'm like, yeah, probably not. I mean, like, that doesn't feel to me like chemtrails or some shit.
It's,
it's like, yeah, like they don't want the public to find out that he has had videos of, fucking
every second
Prince Andrew,
powerful person in the world having sex with children.
Yeah, I mean, that's the question that'll be really interesting is like, what happens with Diddy? Like, what are on all those tapes? If he was filming all the freak offs, it's like, if he goes to jail and he goes like, will he die in jail? Like,
no one will ever see any of that stuff, I reckon.
Yeah. You know what? I will say, wouldn't it, if you're into conspiracy theories, wouldn't it be awesome? And this is the part that makes conspiracy theories feel simultaneously suspect and also viable, is that like, how is there never the actual leak? Like no one ever sees the shit. It's like, does Putin have a video of Trump getting pissed on by the hooker? It's like, can there be one, just one, Like, okay, I'm just riffing here, but just made me think of this. I was talking to John about this the other day. One of the things that I thought was so fucking hilarious about the X-Files. Were you an X-Files fan?
I was never massive on it, but I did enjoy watching it when I was allowed to stay up that late.
Yeah. You're a kid.
Yeah.
The whole premise I just love is that every single episode, the craziest shit ever happens. Like totally unthinkable. Fucking the deepest government conspiracies.
And
aliens.
Now that's just the news cycle.
But in the show, every single episode, because it's formulaic, old school network TV, Scully has to be super suspicious of Mulder, and she's like, Mulder, you're overreacting. It's probably a logical explanation. It's like, bitch, you were like dead and brought back to like last week. Like, how many fucking times is it going to take for you to be like, yeah, it probably is some crazy shit. It's like
crazy shit
because they have to keep doing it because it's episodic TV. So every time she's like, you need to stop seeing smoke, like this is a smoke screen. It's like, it's not actually if there's a logical explanation. It's like every week it's a non-logical explanation. How the fuck could you, like, I don't believe in ghosts or an afterlife. This is the hilarious thing that I will say is that for some reason, I don't know if this is like this in Australia. I know that Australia has a much bigger atheist movement, but the United States is in a lot of ways a parochial nation.
Yeah.
We're a nation of evangelists, Christians, and we've had all these weird puritanical things like repression of sex, and
it's kind of I'm sorry to cut you off, but like when you look at all the coincidences surrounding Trump, it's a little bit hard to kind of, I don't know, you can kind of really easily, I feel like I can understand why people might easily think that, you know, he was chosen by God to save the world or to become the president of the United States with all the just the insane amount of just, he seems to have had a life that's just unlike ours, you know, like just
Or that it's
nearly getting shot, like all that shit. Like it's just,
or that it's a simulation, which people love too, which is an equally fucking useless.
yeah, I got a bunch of friends that are into the simulation thing.
Here's my question about the simulation. Who cares? Sure. Of what use would it be if it were a simulation?
Yeah.
Reality, we have no idea what consciousness is, like how it even comes into being. And consciousness and reality only exists in the parameters of the organism that's experiencing their reality, and all these other ones are different. And like the roots of life, like from what we can understand, like quarks and quantum mechanics and fucking like things that violate all the physical laws that it's already weirder than any other thing. It's like,
I think there's a lot about reality that we actually don't comprehend yet, that we think science has got everything sort of figured out. But then when you really sort of look into things, there's a bunch of stuff that sort of hasn't been answered yet.
Well, I went down this rabbit hole recently of, I have like a pretty decent, I really liked physics and things like that when I was younger. And I had a good rudimentary understanding of like Newtonian physics, you know, Einsteinian relativity even, which is pretty complex. Like I can't do calculus-based physics, but I can understand the concepts.
Yep.
And it's like, you know, like I loved Oppenheimer. It came out, I started reading more about it, and I was like, the more I looked into it, even the way quantum mechanics are taught to physicists is just like, it's so non-inductive and bizarre that they literally, in great schools like Caltech or Oxford or whatever, they're like, don't ask why, it just fucking works. You know, like we can calculate, we can use it to build more efficient nuclear reactors and all these insane fucking things. And it's like, I became very disturbed by the fact that I could not even remotely understand quantum physics. Like I understand like some of it. So I started reading about it a lot and like watching all these like, you know, BBC type YouTube tutorials that are like hours long about how quantum mechanics work. And you not only like would you have to make like a life's work out of it, but even the physicists doing it don't understand it. It became passé to ask why even. And that tells us a lot about how much we don't understand. But the more I like kind of learned about it, like a lot of the preeminent quantum physicists are like, we as lay people want to ask, like, is there a unified theory? Are we going to understand really what the nature of reality is, the nature of existence, the creation of the universe? And a lot of these dudes are just like, no. Like, I do not think that we as people are going to. And there's something that's kind of freeing about that.
It's you mentioned atheism before. I used to be like such a staunch sort of atheist, like to the point I would just completely scoff at any sort of idea of spirituality. And I used to do a lot of like LSD, and I thought that I'd sort of seen, you know, through all the sort of to all the furthest barriers of the human mind, and thought I had everything completely figured out. And then I smoked DMT for the first time and just left my body and just saw my life through a kaleidoscope of like absolutely everything. And remember like coming back down into my body, the first kind of lucid thought I sort of had was like, man, I don't know anything. And then I was kind of like, I don't know if I could really, if I'm even an atheist. Like,
well, so I used to tell people when I was younger that I was agnostic because pronouncing anything with so much authority was just took as just as much pride as telling someone that Jesus is God and the only way to heaven is through belief in him, because it's like it's so you have to presuppose so much. But for me, I guess, and I've never smoked DMT, but from what I understand about the human brain and minor changes in chemicals, um, I guess the point I'm making about the quantum physics thing is like is kind of what you're saying is that like we don't know anything. Like all we're doing is what's crazy about the world is that science produces results in our physical world. And there's been so much skepticism, and it's like we were talking about the other day, the repudiation of expertise that people decry on their fucking YouTube channel, on their smartphone that sends binary code to satellites. Like the amount of technical knowledge is mind-boggling what it takes to accomplish that. And that to me is very indicative of like there's just so much mystery, but there are things that there are rules in our physical world that through science we can manipulate. So there's some, order to things, but then like if you're into like all that hallucinogenic shit, just start learning a little bit about quantum mechanics, man. It's like it violates, I'm forgetting the fucking term, where the quarks can immediately switch with each other at different points in the universe, and it literally violates the space-time continuum.
Yeah.
It's faster than the speed of light. It's like everything that physics is based around, like it's as crazy as like, oh, there was a ghost. It's just a different kind of thing. So that I understand what you're saying when you're like, who fucking knows? Like what, to me, I'm very much like maybe it's an American thing, but I'm very much a pragmatist. And it's like, as an entity that biologically fears its own demise, like I don't want to like die. But even though I'm simultaneously like pretty unhappy living. So, that's one of the curses of, but if the spirituality, that's what I've kind of like tried to like, that's where drugs and alcohol worked for me. And now that I'm older and I can't do that, I'm like, I'm going to have to get into some meditation or some shit to like try to attenuate some of that bleakness, because the spirituality part of it, like when I was very young, I think I realized that like, so in heaven, you're supposed to exist forever. I remember just being a little kid, and it's like,
that sounds a bit fucked, doesn't it?
Well, if what the goal is that, okay, I don't want a cessation of my life, my existence, but then you have to substantiate to some soul that exists for eternity, then it would have very little resemblance to what you're trying to protect as your corporal life. And that would functionally be like basically like being dead anyway. I just couldn't see how it'd be like, I'd be trying to go to sleep at night and I had insomnia, and I'd be like, this is so boring. It's like, what the fuck is eternity like if I'm like not this? It can't be the same as this. So if it's not the same as this, then it's not a continuation. And it's not of any use to salve like the fear of. I mean, obviously, this is from a Judeo-Christian, but like Judaism doesn't have an afterlife, and like neither does Buddhism. So,
I've kind of become a little bit interested in Buddhism for the first time in the last few months. It's
a great intersection with sobriety.
Philosophically, it seems really aligned with how I already sort of think and feel about things. I sort of have read a few bits and pieces of it lately. It's just like, I felt that way, but I hadn't had the words for it yet.
Well, because it's not that it's non-spiritual, but it doesn't have to be a spirit. There's a great book. It's very, very thin reading. You should do it on tape, but it's called I think it's called Buddhism Without Beliefs or Buddhism Without Spirituality. But it's like just the precepts of Buddhism, but without any ritualism or any, you know, real spiritual beliefs.
Mm.
And I have found that to be something that I'm really interested in too. So I think it's something that happens as you start to get more curious. It's also like if you've been fucked up for years, when you come out of that, you're like, oh, I have like all this bandwidth to think about shit.
Yeah.
We can wrap it up, man.
Yeah,
Like,
I was just thinking like it's been going for a couple hours. We could obviously just keep talking, but we're kind of, I don't want to get into 3-hour podcast territory. So what's happening in your simulation for the immediate future after you wrap up New Zealand and Australia over the next week?
oh, so we have some US festivals and a little B market run in the United States that I'm excited to do. Like definitely I mean this has been the best year for health ever, which is actually pretty crazy.
3 months in.
Or sorry, I'm thinking about the year like year to date, not year to date, like from a year ago to now. You know, basically March is when we started our first US tour to support Rat Wars. So late March. So yeah, it's definitely the most successful year we've had as a band. And I'm excited the same way I've been excited to get back over here, just to play some cities in the US that we didn't get a chance to. Like we're gonna do like Nashville and Kansas City and Raleigh and you know what we in the biz call B markets.
Mm.
So it's just fun to be able to play those shows. And then I think we have like maybe a couple other things, and then it'll be this next album will be starting to come out, and then 26 will be pretty full on, I think.
Yep.
That's
So
about it.
So the album is almost done.
Yeah.
Just mixing, and then we'll hear it all soon.
Yeah, and we'll start probably putting songs out in the next couple months. I mean, my life is like I'm a dad, so that's pretty full on all the time.
Cool.
So I gotta like come home and immediately. I don't have any kind of in between time where I can just fuck off and do whatever else. I'll come home from this and be jet lagged as hell and just be like wandering around some park with my kid. There's not like I don't get a break.
Well, one last question to wrap it up. Like, what is the first song that comes to mind if I ask you about a piece of music that changed your life more than any other?
Fuck. I'm trying to think. There's like songs that I have that are my favorite songs, and then I think there are songs. You know, the one that actually really leaps to mind is Dirty Boots by Sonic Youth. And it's not my favorite song. I just had this really strange day when I was around 14 where I'm sure you remember this kind of era when it was like you wanted to go buy music, like you went to Borders or something, like a place where it was like they had CDs and books and whatever. It was like kind of on the cusp. Like,
I bought a Hatebreed CD from Kmart.
Exactly. Yeah, like I would go to these places and it was like on one day I bought Naked Lunch by William Burroughs. I was like a big reader. I went to college and studied literature, and so I was a precocious reader from very early on. So I bought Naked Lunch by William Burroughs. I was 14. Tales of Ordinary Madness by Charles Bukowski, and Sonic Youth Goo in one day. And it was like my entire life was never the same again. It completely transformed everything about me. I didn't know anybody wrote like that, and I didn't know that anybody ever. And I had already started to play guitar, and it was the first time I realized that you could just do really interesting things with guitar that were you didn't need to be a god tier, like fucking Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Page, like rip a crazy metal solo. Like you could express an incredible depth of emotion in a non-traditional way with a guitar, but it was more experimental and more interesting than just power chords. Because I'd already had that magic of hearing punk rock. And part of what was so alluring about it was that it was attainable. And this was like another level of music unlocked for me where I was like, oh, I could play guitar in an interesting way that's not just power chords, but it's also not.
It doesn't require me to be a virtuoso.
No. And I think that I don't want to prattle on too long, but one thing that I will say that I've said many times in trying to communicate what our band is it's like, if you're virtuosic, it changes your relationship with whatever art you make entirely.
Mm-hmm.
And you see a lot of that in this community that we're here at, like at this festival. And I am not virtuosic at all. And most art that I often really resonate with isn't based on virtuosity. It's aesthetics and taste and feeling and trying to communicate emotion in another way than, like, if you're a generationally talented cellist, your relationship with music is, or if you're fucking Dave Lombardo, your relationship with making music is not shackled by, but it's like centered around something that is like very like tangible. And if that's not the kind of artist or musician you are, then it's way more about just drawing from different things that you're inspired by. And I think that song was completely revelatory for me. And then all these other things happened from then on, where it's just like I got into the Velvet Underground. And I'm like, oh, you don't have to be a good singer to make music that like changed music for everybody. It's like Lou Reed was
the table.
Anybody's like, also it's like fucking inventive. It's just inventive. You know what I mean? So it's like, you don't have to be a virtuoso. That's a very freeing thing if you're a kid and you want to be an artist and you don't know how. So that's the song for me.
Cool. Well, thank you, Jake.
Yeah. Sorry I went so long.
No, that's good. I had a great time. Thank you.
No, I appreciate it, man.
Thanks for listening to Music Is My Life. This podcast is self-produced by me, Lachlan Watt. I'd like to thank Audio Technica Australia for providing the high-quality equipment that has made this possible, as well as Patrick Galvin at Hollowbone Studio for the design. The killer theme music that you are currently hearing was written by the legends TJ Cowgill and Sam Saljuki. Catch you in the next episode.